What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Ilia Topuria not interested in fighting Arman Tsarukyan. Ilia Topuria might be the new kid on the block in the lightweight division, but that doesn't mean he has any plans to work his way into title contention. And before we continue, make sure to leave a like on the video to help support the channel. Russian outlet TASS is reporting that Topuria's team has no interest in the #1 contender fight with Arman Tsarukyan, given that he was the featherweight champion. Ilia wants a championship fight. He will not fight for the status of a contender with Tsarukyan or anyone else. Considering that Dustin Poirier thinks he deserves a crack at the title, it'll be interesting to see how the UFC handles things. On Monday's episode of the Ariel Helwani show, Helwani suggested that the UFC could be waiting to see what happens in the Belal Muhammad-Jack Della Maddalena fight before booking Topuria's first fight at 155. That way, if JDM wins, Islam can move up and fight for the title, opening up a spot for Topuria to fight for an interim title at 155, or a fight for the vacant belt if Makhachev moves up for good. The MMA community was quick to weigh in on the news of Topuria being all in on a title shot, with one fan writing, "Too much entitlement for a one title defense legacy. Arman would expose him." Another added, "Guarantee he'd accept a fight with Dustin or Charles. But this makes sense, the Arman fight too risky. He likely loses, but Dustin Charles is winnable." One member of the MMA community replied, "Don't blame him. I wouldn't want to risk it either, but he's probably getting somebody for a warm-up at lightweight." Some fans think El Matador should earn his shot at the belt. I get it, he doesn't want to settle for less, but no one forced him to go into a new division. Gotta test out that strength with the bigger boys. Maybe he's worried the hype train will stop if he loses. Another agreed. Like I said before, if he was confident in himself, he would have fought Arman, and if he won, he would have put pressure on Islam. But it's clear, just like Chael Sonnen said, that he can't make featherweight anymore, or it has become too difficult for him. That's why he's trash-talking Islam, to try and get a title shot right away without going through the contenders.
I can't see him getting a title shot straight away. I think he's going to have to fight like a Poirier, Arman, a Charles, if he wants to get a title shot. He's not a lightweight. He shouldn't be fighting at lightweight. He should stuck at featherweight, and it's going to be the downfall of his career. I think he thinks he's better than he is. Saying he's cemented his legacy at the weight, slow the bullshit. Beat Volk again, beat Lopes, beat Evloev, then you've cleared the division out, yeah. Then move up. You should have to defend your belt at least 3 times if you want to move up.
With the Muhammad JDM fight right around the corner, only time will tell whether Ariel's right about the lightweight title picture. Diego Lopes talks about Alexander Volkanovski fight. With Ilia Topuria moving up to 155, Diego Lopes is now in a position to fight for the vacant title, instead of having to wait for Topuria Volkanovski 2 to happen. During Monday's episode of the Ariel Helwani show, Lopes spoke about the fight, saying that after Volk took a year off, he's expecting the best version of the former champion. "I think Alex is going to be better. The guy has rested for 1 year and he's healthy for the next fight. Alex knew he was 100% next to fight for the title, so I think the guy stayed in the preparation for a long time." Even though he's expecting the best version of Volk in Miami, he believes if he follows the blueprint laid out by Ilia Topuria in his win over Volk, he'll be able to get the win. "I learned so much from Topuria versus Volkanovski. Ilia has a similar style to me. I'm so aggressive going forward, and Ilia is the same. The difference in this fight is that I'm long and I'm taller. I like to fight in the close distance. I think it will be a good fight." The way Aljamain Sterling sees things, Lopes didn't deserve a crack at the title. Movsar Evloev did. He weighed in via social media, kickstarting a back and forth between the two. Definitely should have been Movsar, but of course, no fighter in their rightful mind will ever turn down a title shot because they think it's the right thing to do, so that someone more deserving gets it. Lopes then replied with laughing emojis. Aljo then replied, "What's the joke? You got the title shot, why would you turn it down? Help me understand what's so funny here." "LOL, I'm confused, Diego. Help a brother out, amigo." "Exactly, I'm confused on the joke. Please let us in on the joke, Diego. You got the shot over the guy who beat you. Be grateful and make the most of the opportunity." Lopes then countered, "The joke is that I'm gonna fight for the title because I'm the most active fighter in the division, because I accept fights and don't deny them like you and your friend Movsar did and do." Aljo then took aim at Lopes' manager, Jason House. "You sound like a good old houseboy right now, talking tough to a guy you will see very soon. I hope you talk though then, my boy. Don't bring security and don't ask the UFC to keep me out of events because you're writing a check you can't cash." I said nothing disrespectful to Lopes. The former champ then defended his take. Word, and these knobs, House and Lopes, take that as an insult. Make it make sense. These sensitive Lopes then wrote, "Idiots, watch your words. You had my respect and you just lost it. Stay that ignorant and annoying next time. Even more so because I just saw that you're threatening people on my team. Same energy." Aljo then replied, "Shut the up, bro. You guys can't use reading comprehension. Nothing either of you said makes sense. Talk to me in person. I live in Vegas. It's that simple. We handle it how you decide to." The two then ended things with Lopes writing, "See you soon," and Aljo adding, "See you." Considering the bad blood, if Lopes wins the title, he may try to call for a fight with Aljo. UFC updates. Heading into this weekend's Kop Almabayev Fight Night at the Apex, let's take a look at today's UFC updates, starting with a new addition to the UFC London card at the end of March. According to Kel Fernandez, he and Guram Kutateladze are set to throw down on the card. Fernandez is fresh off a win over Muhammad Yahya back in August, his first in the UFC, while Kutateladze is coming off a win over Jordan Vucenic in August. We've also got reports regarding 2 fights in the works for the UFC 316 card in June, expected to take place in New Jersey. According to reporter Leo Guimaraes, Juliana Pena versus Kayla Harrison is being targeted for this card. Additionally, Benny P is reporting that a fight between Alexandre Pantoja and Kai Kara-France is also being targeted for that card, with Guimaraes corroborating the news. If the fights get made, Pena will be looking to defend her title for the first time, while Kayla Harrison will be looking to build on a win over Ketlin Vieira at UFC 307. Similarly, in the flyweight division, if a fight between Pantoja and Kara-France gets made, Pantoja will be looking to pick up his 4th title defense, while Kai looks to make it 2 in a row after a win over Steve Erceg in August. Michael Chandler not confident in Conor McGregor returning. At one point in time, Michael Chandler and Conor McGregor were just weeks out from their fight at UFC 303. Since McGregor pulled out of the fight with a broken toe, however, there's been pretty much no real news regarding his return. While Dana White had initially expressed some optimism around the return in early 2025 and then late 2025, the last time we heard from the UFC boss, he had no idea when McGregor would be back. During an appearance on the Ariel Helwani show on Monday, Michael Chandler weighed in on the situation. My heart of hearts says Conor's got to come back to his first love. Every single thing that he has can be tied back in some way or another to the UFC, the opportunity that they gave him. Does he want his legacy to be my last fight, I broke my leg, and I touted the greatest comeback in combat sports history? I fooled everybody for a couple of years and then signed on the dotted line to fight Michael Chandler and then pulled out of the fight, never to return again. I don't think he wants his legacy to be that. Then again, I haven't walked a mile in that man's shoes, so I'm not going to say what he's thinking. My heart of hearts says he's coming back at some point, but if I was a betting man, I ain't putting money on it. Chandler also spoke about his upcoming fight against Paddy Pimblett, where he'll look to get back in the win column. We'll test his gall, we'll test his championship mentality, we'll test his cardio, we will test his heart. Paddy Pimblett will be tested more than he has ever been tested in his entire life in April. Just 7 short weeks away, it's the biggest opportunity of his life. Does he rise to the occasion or does he sink? If Chandler's able to get the win, it'll be interesting to see if he calls out McGregor once again during his post-fight Octagon interview. Joe Rogan reveals his favorite UFC interview. Joe Rogan's been on hand for some of the biggest post-fight Octagon interviews in UFC history. During a recent episode of the Joe Rogan Experience, Rogan was talking about some of the best post-fight Octagon interviews that he has seen with comedian Felipe Esparza, citing Israel Adesanya's inspirational UFC 287 post-fight Octagon interview after his win over Alex Pereira as his favorite post-fight interview. This is my favorite moment of anybody after they won a fight. This was real, in the moment, beating a guy who's the boogeyman, dude. Alex Pereira is the boogeyman. He's the scariest in the sport. He knocked Izzy out twice. He left hook KO'd him in kickboxing, and then he beat him down in the UFC. And then Izzy finally knocked him out. That was an classic moment. And then he grabs the microphone and gives one of the most inspirational speeches. When you hear it, you're like, wow, that's what makes the whole career worth it. With plenty of US-based pay-per-views booked for this year, including the UFC 313, 314, 316, and 317 cards, all of which are expected to take place stateside, Rogan will be on hand for some big fights in the months to come. Henry Cejudo should retire after UFC loss? At the time Henry Cejudo retired, he had been undefeated for years, with championship wins at 125 and 135. Since returning to action in 2023, however, Triple C's gone winless. The way Demetrius Johnson sees things, Cejudo should retire rather than continuing to risk his health. During a reaction video for his YouTube channel in the wake of the controversial UFC Seattle headliner, he weighed in, saying that Cejudo doesn't have anything left to prove.
Now, would I like to see Henry Cejudo retire? Yeah, I think so. And yes, I know it's such good money. It's easy to train 8 weeks and go out there and fight, but man, I almost went blind. What I like to see from Henry Cejudo next, I like to see him retire. He's got a great podcast with him and Kamaru Usman, pound for pound. He's got 2 beautiful children. He's got a beautiful wife. I mean, he's got businesses. There's no reason for him to fight and keep risking his health.
Ariel Helwani also weighed in on Monday's episode of his show, adding, "It's tough, and I feel for a guy who's at the very end of his career, and who knows how many he has left, and who knows what the damage is going to be as far as this is concerned. And now he has to sit on an L. And really, like in 5 years, no one remembers the circumstances. They just see it as an L. So now it's like, oh, Henry's on a losing streak. Well, not really. As of Monday, Cejudo is still dealing with the impact of the eye poke. The way Michael Bisping sees things, the UFC needs to do something about eye pokes. He weighed in on the situation on a video for his YouTube channel. People need to know that there's goddamn consequences. Eye pokes are terrible. You know all about my history with the eyes. Eye pokes are bad. If you start taking points, people will stop stretching their fingers out. Then the third round started and there was only a minute left. Song Yadong had his fingers out and so did Henry Cejudo, and I'm like, why isn't the ref saying anything? While Song and Triple C agreed to run things back in the aftermath of the scrap, Dana White said he's got no interest in seeing these two fight again. Given that, there's no telling what's next for Cejudo. Paulo Costa fighting Bo Nickal? A couple of weeks ago, we reported on Paulo Costa teasing a fight with Bo Nickal on the MMA Gurus podcast. Now, in the wake of Jared Cannonier's win over RoboCop, it sounds like Costa's all in on a fight against the NCAA legend. In a series of posts on social media this week, Costa dropped some news on Cannonier, while also teasing a fight with Nickal. First, he cryptically wrote, "Jared is out for a while, source UFC." He then cryptically added, "Not Jared." Costa then name-dropped Nickal. Is Bo Nickal available? No word from the UFC yet on if there's any truth to these comments. However, after Nickal's victory over Paul Craig, Dana White said that he's got some work to do, and the UFC will move him along slowly. Considering Costa's a former title challenger, a fight against him would definitely be a step up in competition. The MMA community reacts to Dan Hooker pulling out of UFC 313. Sadly, UFC 313 has lost a banger fight. Dan Hooker pulled out of his fight with Justin Gaethje. Dan Hooker revealed in a YouTube video with his daughter earlier today that he's out of the fight due to a hand injury. Here's what Dan had to say.
Welcome everyone back to Zoe Hooker TV. We did have a little break. We have been busy. Dad had a fight, or was supposed to have a fight, but I've busted me paw.
Just sparring last night, as I do, just letting some hooks go, and just caught one of the boys on the top of the dome with my knuckle. And then I didn't think too much of it, but they sent me off to get a CT scan. Had a little CT scan, and they told me that my hand is fractured. So yeah, like I obviously still would fight with like the medicals. They like squeeze it, like they squeeze your hands. I'll just say they're like, ah! So nah, we'll see how it all plays out. We'll see if we can kick this fight down the road, or we'll just wait and see, baby. It's just unfortunate that it was this close. Obviously gutted for all the fans that I know that were excited for this fight.
And before we continue, we have a favor to ask. Help us reach 200,000 subscribers on MMA Zone by subscribing and turning on notifications for daily MMA content. Seriously, we rarely miss a day. Following the announcement, Islam Makhachev reacted on Instagram story, writing, "I have to put out someone while standing next to two fire extinguishers." Some people think this is a message about Ilia Topuria, but this was posted after Dan Hooker pulled out. Also, Islam and Gaethje have expressed interest in fighting each other over the past couple of weeks. Justin Gaethje said his dream fight is against Islam Makhachev during his YouTube Q&A this past week. And Makhachev said this during an interview after his UFC 311 win. "I like this idea of fighting Gaethje because I haven't fought Justin yet, and if you look at the others on the list, Charles Oliveira, Arman Tsarukyan, I've already fought them, and preparing for the same opponent is not such a big motivation." So clearly the interest is there from both fighters. Also, important to note, the card is being held in Vegas, and the UFC needs a big fight for this card. This could be the perfect scenario since Islam Makhachev took no damage in his last fight. The MMA world was also quick to react to Dan Hooker pulling out, with Renato Moicano, Mateusz Gamrot, and Rafael Fiziev offering to step in on short notice. Here's what the community had to say. Fiziev said, "Let's run it back." Gamrot said, "My fight with Hooker was very close and he got lucky with the judges. Time to fix it and prove it." Moicano said, 2 weeks is good. I got enough time for 2 or 3 sparring sessions. I'll be ready if they call. Reschedule too good of a matchup. Best option in my opinion is to rebook Dan Hooker versus Justin Gaethje at UFC 314 depending on how quickly Dan's hand recovers. Have it to co-main over Paddy Chandler can then also get 3 5-rounders for Miami. This is the worst way to start the day. Hope Hooker heals up quickly. Did bro punch a wall? I know Ilia doesn't want to fight a contender, but imagine. What these guys be doing a week and a half before the fight, bro? Truly baffles me. This quitter has pulled out 5 times in the past 2 years. So many fights and cards ruined by this bum who can't control himself from being a bully in the gym. Karma.